Hey guys, let's talk. And we got a lot to talk about this morning, guys, haven't we? Quite a bit. No script. I suspect this is going to be a long one. Thing is, about British nationalists, or what's the word they like to use now? Ethnats, yeah. Ethno nationalists. How can I put this kindly? Most, most of us are a little bit brighter than your average person. We take more interest in what is going on around us. We can see further and clearer than most people. So last night, the result in the Gorton and Denton by-election didn't come as a surprise to us. I mean, I was writing about this decades ago, about the Islamic bloc vote, how elections would be stolen and the kind of tactics that they would use to secure a victory. You've got to realize we're not all the same. Some people have different values. Different races have different values. To some of us, lying, stealing, abusing the system is wrong. To others, that's just a normal way of life. And they laugh at people who don't behave in the same way they do. Yeah? I'll be pausing quite often to gather my thoughts. But first, let's have a look at the election results, is there? Oh, no, wait. First, let me bring you up to speed on, if you like, with the Paul Thorpe, Richard Inman, Jeff Taylor situation. They took a pasting yesterday. They took a pasting. I went over to Scribestar, which tracks subscriptions of YouTube channels, and Richard Inman, he's lost hundreds of subscribers, and Paul Thorpe isn't far behind him. I couldn't get the figures on Jeff Taylor. I'll check again later. But now people have seen them for what they are. There are a couple of other sites out there like that as well. You'll normally spot them. They'll accuse you of being an anti-Semite or an ethno-nat. If they say that, you know the chances are they haven't got the best interests of our country at heart. Anyhow, enough of them. I don't really want to talk about them ever again, to be honest. Just lump him in with Antifa. Anyhow, let's have a look at the election results. The Green Party, 14,980. Reform, 10,578. Labour Party, 9,364. Advance UK, 154 votes. We knew that was going to happen. We could dream, couldn't we? We could try and fool ourselves. But it didn't matter how many patriots went in to campaign. We could never win that particular battle because the Green Party, their voters, made up mainly of Muslims and people from overseas. They've got serious skin in the game. Yeah. They outnumbered the white voters. And herein lies the rub, where they have an advantage over the indigenous population. I'll use that expression for now. They vote in a block. They are tribal. There are stories of entire families being herded into the voting booths by the husband, shepherd his wives in, voting age children, and they vote in a block. So that was hard to overcome that, because us Indigenous people, the white British, we tend to have minds of our own, and so we have different opinions, and we vote for policies, not a tribal thing. Well, that's going to have to stop, guys, if you want this country to survive. I'm not even sure that we can win anymore, and I'm not a defeatist. I'll fight to the bitter end. But so a large proportion of the reform vote would be people, despite loathing Nigel Farage, and Farage is really disliked around the country now, I tell you. He's not seen as a saint or a saviour, but he was the best of the worst options available. So that would be predominantly white. But in amongst the Labour Party then, you'd have the indigenous population, what I call libtards, yeah? Marxists, communists, they are going to vote Labour, yeah? They wouldn't vote for reform on principle. So the white vote was devoted. What's the word? White vote. Reduced, yeah? It could have been much bigger. Could they have won then? Yes. If the whites had voted in a block instead of on principles, reform could have won. But no, it doesn't happen that way. The other ones that they were talking about. Now, the Green Party, if you've seen their policies, they are completely barking mad, insane to anyone except those who were colonized in our country, because their policies are free housing, free money, open borders to fetch in more of them, and to carry on with the colonizing of our country. Yeah, that's their policies. And still, the indigenous population in Gorton and Denton didn't vote for a party that would speak out against it. I said in a post yesterday, actually it didn't matter who won the Gorton and Denton by-election. It was just a skirmish. It would have been good for morale, a victory, but it wouldn't change anything in the long run. We need to take back all of our constituencies in one go. Yeah, in one go. But we can't even do that now because of places like Gorton and Denton. And I think I found about 15 constituencies where it's impossible, if every single white person they voted for a patriotic party, we couldn't take back. Anyhow, let's go on to the next image, you see, guys. Demographics. Over 20 years, maybe 30, I've been writing, democracy and demographics will destroy this country, yeah? Well, this is what you get with democracy and demographics. Democracy can only work in a civilized society where people vote on policies and principles. They don't vote on tribal lines, but that's not happening anymore. We've got to change the way we think. Recent demographic research suggests that if current trends continue, the white British population in the United Kingdom could fall below 50% sometimes in the mid-21st century, likely around 2060. As of the mid-2020s, 73% of the UK population identified as white British. Some major cities, London, Birmingham, already have no single ethnic group above 50%, meaning whites are a minority there. Yeah, we know how many cities we've lost. We know how many towns we've lost. And it's the same pattern all the time. They come in, and there's no other word to describe it. They ethnically cleanse areas. Usually the indigenous population will flee, which is why you get the term white flight, and you can't blame them. I don't know how many English are living in Wales now, but a lot. Yeah, and I welcome them. Yeah, they're my kinsmen. They saw the writing on the wall, and they did what they thought was right for their families. They got them out of the danger areas. So I don't blame them for that. Some of them can be pricks. I mean, they'll sell an house in London for a substantial sum of money and buy a property in Wales, which compared to London prices is quite cheap. And so they've got a wad of money, and they throw it around and think they're kings and just act like jerks. But others are great. I'm just thinking about English Di in the pub. He just passed away, actually. I liked English, but you see, we call him English Di. We had a black girl who lived here for a long time. Black Anne. Yeah, that was her name. Everyone said, Black Anne, English Di. You know me, guys, I laugh no matter how bad things are. So you can see what's coming. 73% of the UK population identifies as white British. When I was a boy, my father would take me into Trafalgar Square to feed the pigeons, me and my late brother. I was number one son, he was number two. I'm one of 5 brothers. 2 of them are dead. The youngest died recently. Vodka. What can you do? England then, the United Kingdom then, was over 95% British. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful period of time. Yes, there was poverty. It was the tail end of rationing. Well, even though rationing had just ended, it was difficult to get stuff, you know. But it was fabulous time. Then they started to come, didn't they? The colonizers. And I'll tell you this now, and you might not believe me. This isn't happening by accident. This, what is being done to the British people, is an act of revenge. This is revenge. I'll have to do a separate video about the people behind it. But I know out there are ethno-nats who are a little bit more clued up than your average man on the street. They know who the people carrying out this attack on all of Western civilization are. They know, and they know it's revenge against us. Anyhow, this is why they say ethno-nats want mass deportation. We do. We want our country back to go to a population of between 80 and 95% white. Yeah? Some people would say 80% no. It's got to be 90, 95 or nothing. Yeah, I won't argue over that. Because we want to return to, if you like, a white homeland, Israel has the right to be an ethno-state. All the other countries in the world, well, most of them, leave out countries like America, are ethno-states. It's only the white Western style countries that are being colonized. Canada, Australia. America is a different case, isn't it? That is, if you like, sort of multiracial, although it was originally settled and civilized by the white race. Yeah, they're a bit different. Paul. So what's coming? I know what's coming because I've lived through it. Some of you older people will as well. Let's remove those depressing figures. Let's go here, shall we? Ship I truly loved, HMS Kettleston. I was the ship's radio operator. That yellow bar you see on top of the bridge, that's what we call the tiger tails. It's how you can quickly spot a mine hunter from a minesweeper, even though they look much the same. It was aboard her that I had my introduction to sectarianism and the type of warfare. Excuse me. Sorry about that. By the way, 3-second rule. When you pick up your phone, your landline rings and you use silence, don't answer. The spam system at the other end is waiting to hear a human voice before it will switch it over to a scammer or start the automatic message saying this is online security, blah, blah, blah. Just pick it up and listen for 3 seconds. If nobody speaks, just hang it up. Yeah. Sometimes I like to play with the scammers. I'll keep them on for ages to wind them up. And then I'll say, can you keep talking, please? Yeah. I'm tracking your number back. Yeah. Right. You've come to an hacking website that specializes in attacking scammers, and I'm currently downloading a virus onto your system. They're thick as bricks. They don't realize that we're not connected. We're still on the phone line. But there you go. Or I tell them that they've come through to the Pope. And why are they ringing the Vatican at this time in the morning? Yeah, you can have great fun with them. But let's be serious. There she is, HMS Kettleston. I could show you a photograph of what happened to her in the end, but it would bring tears to my eyes. So we won't do that. You know, I can get emotional just by reading a poem. 1969. Remember it well. My first introduction to what was to happen in Northern Ireland. It hadn't kicked off then, it was just about to. Someone said that one of the first shots was fired at us outside Londonderry. Whether or not that's true, whether it was the first shot, I don't know. I was the first place I went to, Londonderry. Catholics called it Derry. They didn't like the name London. Met a wonderful girl there. It was kind of peaceful. Anyhow, that was my arriving in Londonderry. But what did we do on board that ship? We carried out an operation called Operation Granada. That ship there, Kettleston, was the first ship to do a Granada patrol. Later, I would do lots of Granada patrols on lots of similar ships, like the Kettleston. But I'll tell you about that down the road. So what we would do is we would sail the Irish Sea, boarding fishing vessels that suspected might be carrying weapons in. And that is an experience. You see them throw grappling irons over the side of a ship. Well, sometimes they don't land. Sometimes I'd go with the boarding parties. The skipper'd let me go. Normally I'd be by his side all the time on the bridge. But sometimes he'd let me go. Strap on a 9mm. The guys would get their SMGs. You don't want a rifle below decks, do you? The barrels are too long. It's going to be close combat. so pistols or SMGs, and we would search the vessels. Well, once boarding Gemini raiding craft, the bloody grappling iron didn't go, and it came down, and boy, did it bounce off my head. But we had paratype helmets on. But it knocked me for 6 because they are really heavy. They've got to be about £3, £4 maybe. Took some doing to throw them over the side of the ship. Actually, thinking about it, that bump on the head might account for my strange behaviour sometimes. Anyhow, we'd go on. The fishermen would sometimes be friendly, sometimes hostile. And but a well-pointed weapon would convince them it was best just to let us get on with the search. Later on, as things warmed up, we stopped sending our sailors, and we would carry small detachments of Royal Marines to do it, but not always. But occasionally in certain areas we'd take Royal Marines. Interesting. One occasion, I remember the coxswain's name, Harry Spedden. They boarded a ship, a fishing vessel, just outside Irish waters. And you know those Irish, they didn't call them rebels for nothing. They kidnapped our crew and took them to the Republic of Ireland. Well, that was a diplomatic incident, and I don't think it was widely reported in the press, if it even made the press. But my skipper was furious. I was by him on the bridge. He said, "Tool up, Sparks," he says. "You're going after him in the next boat." Well, we got the second craft out. There's no way we could catch them, and they were back into Irish waters, and so we had to negotiate their release. Yeah. So that was my first introduction to Northern Ireland. If you like, I'll tell you about what happened next, and then I'll tell you about what is coming to our country and what you can expect. And if you're easily depressed, go live in Spain, because this is not going to end well. You've been listening to Paul Morris, The Green Arrow, thinking. See you on the next one.